In regards to this week's discussion, I was reading a article by um, it was written by Michael Stonebraker and published on blog CM. And it was basically just talking about the differences between SQL databases and non-SQL databases. And it brings up a good point. I don't believe that they'll become extinct just for the fact that they do still have a large purpose, and for the current dynamic and market to completely shift to another asset. um, I mean, there could be a third option that comes in like 30 years that takes over everything. So I don't believe that they're going to be really extinct, because they do have actual strict, or not strict, but they do have a purpose. Um, while I was reading, it made sense for certain systems to have no SQL databases, just because those systems were more likely to be used for more of a update type, lookup type, workload, which would be something that's not as intensive as a data management type business where every single thing needs to be X, Y, and Z needs to be saved into the database, and you need to be able to look up those variables in that way. um, and just by looking at like it's that's basically kind of the difference. Is there are some businesses where an SQL database is very vital. They do, a big, heavy data management workload. They're, going through a lot. They need to be able to, go through those shards and things like that. And whereas, there are some where it might not be necessary. They might just need kind of a type, uh, surface level type system where it doesn't need to be that in depth, or it doesn't need to be that extensive for their purposes, because for them that's not a need or a necessity for them in order to run their business, and to save their data or manage their information in their system. So that's kind of where I was going with that, and discussing that as well, because there are, you know, huge advantages and disadvantages between the two. I mean, in comparison, the non-SQLs seem to have a faster processing speed, but they're also not going through a more stringent base. They're just doing a surface level updating information, lookup, whereas, those SQLs are, really going in and really overhauling and adding information to the system, and then segmenting it into those shards as well to identify it later. So that's kind of like my take. And I mean, with technology, it's always a catch 22, because there's going to be new systems all the time that works with computers, phones, programs, whatever. And regardless, there's still going to be a good portion of people who are going to want to use those older systems. I mean, if you think about it, there's still a lot of stores that use older computer systems to check people out. They're not all using, the newest fancy operating systems. If it's not broke to them, they're not going to change. So you also need to keep that in mind as well when you're discussing whether or not something's becoming extinct or going to go extinct within the next few years.